Hello and welcome to the Wicker Library. My name is Aaliyah and today we are going to be doing the mid-year reading check-in book tag. This was created by Jesse the Reader and I'll link his channel and the original tag video down below, as well as all of the questions and all of the information in the books I talk about and all that stuff. But this tag was inspired by the mid-year book freakout tag, which creators I will also link down below. I'm so excited to be answering all of these questions about all my reading habits and all my new favorite books and like disappointing books that I can finally get to talk about. And yeah, so without further ado, let us get into the questions. Question number one is, of course, what has been your favorite book you've read so far this year? And so the best book that I've read this year has definitely been Babel by R.F. Kuang. This book has been circulating the internet endlessly, and it is so deserved because this book was just absolutely brilliant. It follows several characters as they're accepted into Oxford University during this alternate sort of historical fantasy world where magic exists, but magic is based around the art of translation and using language to create these like pairs of words, and that's how the entire world basically runs. And there's so many good critiques on colonialism and imperialism, and the cast of characters is so good. Like the dynamics between the characters, the character arcs themselves, the writing is just absolutely gorgeous, and the storytelling is just, it's incredible. It has easily been the best book that I've read this year. I don't know if it is going to be my favorite yet. I've read a lot of good books this year. It's been a really nice reading year for me, but it's easily the best book, like just objectively. It's so good and it's so worth all of the hype it's getting. The next question is the alternative to question number one, and that is, what has been your most disappointing read of this year? And for me, I could say The Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas, but I've talked all I want to talk about that book and how much I disliked it. So I'm going to instead talk about a recent disappointing read, which was Woman Eating by Claire Kohda. And this book had so much going for it. I really liked the premise. It's like that female rage and like there's a vampire. Well, the main character is a vampire, and there was such room for it to be so good, and it was just not. It just fell so flat for me. The commentary was just so stunted, it felt like, and it was very predictable where it was going from like the introduction of each new character. You knew what role that character would play in the end. So the big twist, I don't even know if I'd call it a twist at the end, just it was kind of like we knew this all along. Like, why are you writing this as if this is gonna be like some big reveal or something like that, or some big turn of events? And I did not understand the romance, and I'm aware that the romance wasn't supposed to be a romance and it was supposed to be like commenting on different things, but it could have been such a good book, and it was very, very disappointing. And what was even more disappointing was that the audiobook narrator was so good. The narrator was so good for this book, and that's why I was really enjoying it at first, because I liked the writing style, I liked the narrator, I was intrigued by the premise, and then just the farther along I read, I was like, this could have been a short story. All of the middle didn't need to be there. It did not need to be there. It did nothing for the book. And yeah, so that was a very disappointing read, and I might talk about it more in a wrap-up one day. But yeah, that was not it. Question number three is an interesting one, and that is, what has been the best book recommendation you've received and who was it from? So this book I saw a review for, so it wasn't necessarily recommended to me, but like it was a general recommendation. It was a glowing review, and that was from Olivia, whose Instagram account I follow, and her Instagram handle I'll put below, but it's _Olivia Says. And The book that she wrote a review for is They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us by Hanif Abdurraqib, and this book is so good. It's a collection of essays, and all of the essays surround or talk about either a musician or an album or a song. And as someone who enjoys music but hasn't really ever read about it, I don't listen to it very often, especially considering some of my friends who are like huge music freaks. I love music, but I'm definitely not as much of an avid listener as the author of this book. And the writing was just immaculate. It was so good that it made me want to write again. It made me want to write my own like creative nonfiction pieces. And it's just, the writing is really what floored me with these essays, but the way they all like had a similar thread going throughout, and it was just so cohesive, and I just want everyone to read this book because it is so beautiful and it is phenomenal. Even if you don't think the premise interests you, I promise you, like, the writing will grab your attention and keep it until the very end. I highlighted like 90% of this book while annotating it. It was just so good. I'm putting down my bangs because I can never decide if I want bangs or not. So, ignoring the fact that I have bangs now. The next question is, what was the first DNF of the year for you? And this is interesting because I DNF'd this book for class and it was required reading for class, and I got 15 pages in and realized it was shit. And I feel fine saying that, okay? Because this book, which I'm talking about, which is Embassytown by China Mieville, so pretentious, it's one of those books where like I could tell from the first 15 pages and the discussions we had about the book after it, even though I didn't read it, I could participate because no one liked that book in that class, okay? No one. But this book just felt like the author was trying to show off. And there's an airplane. But this book felt like the author was just trying to show off, like, the writing. But there was nothing to show off, okay? There was, like, absolutely nothing to show off. Because the world building, where? I would love to know where it was. The author just plopped us into this world and didn't explain anything, and not in the way that can be done correctly. See Octavia Butler and Bloodchild. We read that for class, and it was phenomenal. And so Octavia Butler did it wonderfully in Bloodchild, which was a short story, and she like plopped you into this universe and this planet. You had no idea what it was about, but the visual writing helped ground you. You didn't know what was going on, but it didn't matter that you didn't know what was going on. And with Embassytown, it matters quite a lot that you should know what's going on, and it makes you feel stupid. But then you feel like the author's just laughing at you because every now and again, he would explain something just to show you he could. And then he wouldn't do it again. It was so infuriating to read, just those 15 pages. And then like the excerpts we were brought up in class and all of that. But yeah, I DNF'd that, and I will never be returning to it, or probably China Mieville as an author. Just not my cup of tea. Next question is, what is a 2023 release that you read this year? Or aka, what's a new release that came out this year that you've read this year? And for that, I will have to say Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries by Heather Fawcett. I really enjoyed this book. I have a wrap-up, I believe, that I talk about it. Or I talk about it in some sort of video. But it's really funny because I was actually kind of on the fence about this book after I finished it. I didn't really like the main character, Emily, very much, but it ends up, I didn't like her because she reminded me too much of myself, and I did not want to acknowledge any of that. So I didn't. And then it wasn't until my mom read it where she was like, Aaliyah, you said this character was really unlikable, but like, you're her. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. Like, don't acknowledge me. But this book is really good, and it follows Emily Wilde and her little adventures, and she's just this professor, and she's studying fairies, and she goes on all these fairy adventures, and her rival slash best friend slash maybe something more. Wendell Bamblebee, he owns my heart, but he goes along with her after a while. And it's just them frolicking and like them meeting a bunch of people, including fairies. And it is such a fun book. And I had a really good time reading it. It's really funny. It's very sarcastic. And just the side characters made the book shine, because if I reread this, I think I'd like it more, because again, I didn't like being in Emily's perception of the world because it called out things within me that I didn't want to acknowledge. I don't know about that, but it's a very good book and it's a highly rated book. Everyone seems to love it, and for good reason. It hits a bunch of the marks. Question number 6 is a two-parter, and that is, what is an anticipated book you want to read that has come out in the first half of the year, and what is an anticipated release that is yet to come out this year? So for the first half of the year, it's already come out, but I really want to read Homebodies by Tembe denton-hurst. I haven't actually heard many things about how people are receiving this book. I just heard a lot about the pitch of it, and people were talking about it as an anticipated release. I've heard almost no reviews of it since, but I pre-ordered it and I have a copy, and so I'm really hoping to read it actually this month and pick it up really soon, because it just sounds very fun. I don't want to really give a synopsis because I will do it such shame, because I did read the synopsis, okay, but I also bought it. I pre-ordered it on a gut feeling, okay? Was that because the cover was pretty and that I heard it was sapphic and the author's really pretty? Yes, but there's other reasons too. And I'd love to share them with you, but I'm going to choose not to. So yeah, but that is one book that I'm hoping to read soon that was released in the first half of this year. And one that is going to be released in the second half of the year that I really want to get to is Bellies by Nicola Dinan. I am so excited to read this book. I, again, know very little about it, but I do know it is a romance, but it's a difficult romance. And there's one of the people in the relationship, I believe, is transitioning, and I just know it's going to be very queer. I hear it's just heart-wrenching, but also very tender and beautiful. And again, the cover's really nice. And also the author, again, very, very pretty. But I heard about this when it was released, but I've also seen reviews and they've been nothing but like people raving about it. Even Elliot Page, even he says it's amazing. So you know what? I'm excited for it, and I'm hoping to read it as soon as it comes out and comes to my doorstep, because yes, I did pre-order it. Question number 7 is, what is the most beautiful book you've added to your collection this year? So either a book you've bought or maybe a book you want to buy. And so a lot of my books are actually in New York right now because I'm in the process of moving into an apartment over there, and so since it's going to be a more permanent place, I'm kind of getting my books here over to there, and it's a whole thing. I'll probably do some vlogs or videos where I set up a new bookshelf and all that stuff. But the book I want to talk about is over there, unfortunately, so I can't show it to you, but I'll show like a picture, but I promise you it does not do it justice. But it's the Barnes & Noble exclusive paperback of If We Were Villains by ML Rio. And I got this book signed in person by ML Rio herself, because I went to like the Barnes & Noble event where she came. She talked about the book. It was an amazing event. It was so good. I've read that book 6 times. It's one of my all-time favorites. And the edition has black sprayed edges and like gold foiling, and it's just, oh, it's beautiful. It's just, you hold it and you ascend because it feels correct. You know those books that just feel correct? That is this book. And yeah, so it was also a great experience getting the book and having it signed. And did I trip all over myself when I was talking to her? Yes, I literally tripped down the stairs walking away, like, because there was this platform, and like I tripped down the stairs after I talked to her, and she saw. But we don't have to talk about that. We just have to talk about how pretty this book is and how it fits this prompt. Next question is, what is your most read genre? So I'm going to put up my little story graph stats so you can see the rankings of all the genres I've been reading. But so far this year, I've definitely read mostly literary fiction, and that's pretty on par for me. I'm really in a mood reader, and I've been in a literary fiction mood. I've specifically been in a very big translated fiction mood, so I've been reading a lot of translated fiction lately, a lot of literary fiction, a lot of weird fiction. So yeah, I'm also starting to get a little more into fantasy, which I never thought I would say. I have not been a fantasy reader in a long time, but I'm starting to rediscover the genre and have a very fun time. So I might do a reading vlog where I just read a bunch of fantasy because I can. And I'm sort of into it now. But yeah, my most read genre is for sure literary fiction. Question number 9 is an interesting one, and that is, do you think your reading tastes have changed this year? So whether that be in terms of tropes, in terms of themes, in terms of genres you've read. And I kind of talked about it already, but I have started to read a little more fantasy, which I haven't read in years. And I don't know if it's really changed all that much from last year or the year before. I think last year was when I started really reading adult fiction a lot more than YA, because I started fading out of YA. I still read like auto by authors, like Kayla Ankrum writes anything, and I will be begging for a copy early. But other YA, like new YA, I haven't really been on top of. It just kind of faded out for me. I get a lot more frustrated at characters a lot quicker now. Maybe it's because I'm a bit older, but it's probably not. It's probably just because I've gotten grumpier in my old age. But I have started reading fantasy, like I said. I've even considered trying more sci-fi. That's like a light promise. That's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, I think I've also really gotten into more nonfiction. So I've gotten into disability studies a lot more since taking literal courses in disability studies in college. But yeah, so I've been interested in more nonfiction and sociology and stuff like that. But yeah, I think my tastes have remained reasonably same in terms of I will always gravitate towards queer authors, towards BIPOC authors, just because that's where I feel drawn towards, and also I personally think it's just better. And so yeah, my tastes have been not stagnant, but not totally changing either. I don't know if that was a real answer, but that's the answer I'm going to give. Question 10 is a really rude one, and that is, how are your bookish goals for the year going? So I started up booktube again, like not at the very beginning of the year, so I didn't have any goal video, but to myself, I had the goal to like cut my TBR, my physical TBR, that is, in half or down to 10 books. And all I will say is that I'm on a book buying ban now, and it's going well, but I have not cut down my TBR. And that is the reason I'm on the ban. And yeah, the bookish goals are not going well at all. But I am hoping that being on this book buying ban will help. But yeah, my physical TBR is still quite extensive. Question number 11 is, what book format have you gravitated towards the most this year? And so according to like Storygraph and stuff, it's physical books. I read the most physical books, but a format that I've just started really getting into, especially because I just got a Kindle, is ebooks. So I've been getting a lot of ebooks from the library, and that's just been really nice for commuting. I commute to and from work, and so there's a lot of time for that. I do love a good audiobook as well, so anything I can read while on the go, so either listen to or just have like one thing and not have to hold like a whole book on the bus, like standing or on the train or anything, is really nice. So I have definitely been gravitating more towards ebooks recently, and yeah, I am a big fan. I read just in all formats. We have arrived at the final question, and that is, what book have you read this year that you feel embodies the vibe, the reading vibe of this year for you? And for me, I would have to say one of my most recent reads, which was The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. And this is a dark, twisted fairy tale, and it's retelling-esque based around The Little Mermaid. And I hesitate to call it a retelling as much as a reframing. And in this version, The Little Mermaid is this like scary, terrifying siren that like eats and destroys and like eats people, but like she's so justified for eating people, okay? I know that sounds weird without context, but if you read it, she is justified and she has done nothing wrong. But it's also very queer, which I was not expecting going in, and I loved that. But it's just a very twisted fable, fairy tale kind of combination, and there's this like little romance thing that goes on that's really, really interesting because it doesn't feel like a romance. It feels like a friendship that like is perceived as a romance, and that is exactly like my vibe. So I just think it really encompassed this year with going towards darker fiction and also really discovering fantasy for the first time. Not for the first time, but rediscovering fantasy for the first time in quite a few years. So that is the end of this book tag. Again, please check out the original creators below of both the mid-year book freakout tag and this revamped tag. And yeah, let me know what you're reading, what you've been reading, any answers you have to these questions. Feel free to comment them. I love chatting about current reads, getting new opinions. If you have any recommendations, literally anything, comment it. I would be happy to kind of engage in some conversation. And yeah, so if you liked the video, feel free to like it physically. If you want to subscribe, feel free to do so. And yeah, I will see you all in the next video.